Welcome to the Gentleman Project podcast. I'm Kirk Chugg.
And I'm Cory Moore. Today we have the famous Chad Lewis in our studio. Chad has been well known in the NFL world, playing for Philadelphia, Super Bowl rings. Chad, thanks so much for being with us.
Thanks so much for having me. This will be a lot of fun.
So Chad, maybe to start, you could tell us just a little bit about your career to give people background, and then we can dive into your family and being a father.
Okay. I had a 9-year NFL career with the Philadelphia Eagles and then 1 year with the St. Louis Rams. I had 3 different coaches. Ray Rhodes started my career, and then Dick Vermeil, and then Andy Reid. Andy Reid was the longest 7 years out there. I've played with legendary coaches. I played with unbelievable quarterbacks, Ty Detmer, Rodney Peete. Bobby Hoyne got me started, then Kurt Warner at the Rams, and then Doug Peterson, Donovan McNabb in Philadelphia. So amazing quarterbacks, teammates, coaches. I say that there's never been a greater line of coaches from junior high to the pros than what I had. Lavelle Edwards in college, Tom Rabb at Orem High School, Lee Salmons as a 9th grader. Those coaches. I don't think any football players ever had better coaches than me. I really enjoyed my time playing in the NFL. It was fun to play the best people in the world as a strong safety, outside linebacker, defensive end. I mean, to face Michael Strahan twice a year and, the other guys I went up against, every week was a battle. So I loved the challenge. Had, some opportunities to both receive injuries and recover from injuries.
Did you give any injuries?
I gave a fair share. So sure. Everything in between, dreams came true, goals set, goals made, disappointments, heartache. I wish I could bottle my experiences and give them to someone else and say, can you just try this for a minute? Because the highs, the lows, the work, the effort, the struggle, the relationships, all of it was beautiful. It was really cool. I'm very grateful.
Very cool. What's keeping you busy nowadays?
I work at BYU full-time. I'm the director of their fundraising team in the athletic department. So again, I'm surrounded by incredible people. Tom Homo he's such a great athletic director. Hopefully we can talk about him and what he did for the BYU team to keep their football schedule alive this year during the pandemic when everyone else was running for the hills. He was just eyes forward, maneuvering around every obstacle and made it happen. It was miraculous. I have 7 kids. My 2 daughters are married. One of those daughters, they have a brand new baby. So as far as family, just full speed everywhere, full tilt.
What's the range in ages?
My daughters are 24 and 23. And then I have a boy that's 20. He's a missionary in Fresno. And a boy that's a junior in high school. He's 17. Boy in 9th grade. He's 15 now. And then twin boys at 12 years old.
All right. I got twin 13-year-olds.
So fun. Huh?
Yeah.
Twins are amazing. They suck the energy out of any room. It's like, wow.
Or bring it.
Just a force of nature.
That's awesome.
Well, there's probably like 1,000 questions I have for you that are running through my mind right now.
Rip them. Let's go.
But I think let's talk about these coaches. You mentioned a few seconds ago, you've had like this great line of coaching. And I can't help but think coaching and being a dad and a father, those are pretty similar in a lot of ways. And you also mentioned bottling your experiences and being able to give them to others, right? So loaded question, but maybe you could talk a little bit about what did those coaches teach you and what parts of those things did you try to give to your kids? What part of those experiences and that was coaching did you give to your kids and how? And I know that's a loaded big question, but maybe you could talk a little bit about that.
So I'll start right in the heart of my coaching with Tom Rabb, who was my high school coach. That was you're 15, 16, 17 as a high school kid. That coach is so important to your life because you are impressionable. You're clay. You're with your parents. you're with all your buddies at high school, and then you have this coach that has such a power in your life. And it could be very positive. It could be very negative. It happened to be extremely positive for me. I was with a coach who was an accountant teacher at Orem High School. He was also a black belt in karate. He was this super intense guy, but very quiet. He was like under the water. He was this raging power. And up on the surface, he was like calm as a Buddhist monk. And he was able to teach us and coach us and motivate us in a way that when I would go home and have dinner with my family, I would be telling stories about Coach Rab. And my parents would be looking at me like, what is going on? Like, tell us more about this Coach Rab. Like, how can he have such this draw and influence over all you guys? Not just you, but two of my older brothers also played. Well, three of my older brothers also played for him, but he was my head coach. And the things he taught me were intense. Here's an example. I went to practice one day, and like many high school kids, something happened in a practice. I dropped a pass and I swore, and he got after me so quick. He's like, hey, you do not talk like that out here. And just his look and the tone of his voice, I was not going to mess with him, and I was going to change. And I was so grateful for that. One more example of him. There was a little argument I got in with a teammate in the weight room in the summer. The reason for the argument is not important, but the fact is that we were teammates, and we were kind of having a little argument in the weight room. And Coach Rab was sitting over in the corner at the desk just supervising our lift. And he saw something going on over there, and he said, hey, what's going on over there? And I said, oh, nothing, it's okay, you know. But he knew that it wasn't okay. He knew that our conversation was not team chemistry building. It was something was fractured. And he said, we're a team in here. And if you don't want to be a team, you can get the hell out. He didn't talk like that. I was one of the captains on that team. And when he spoke to me that way, it pierced me. I knew his desire, how bad he wanted us to be a team. And I knew that I let him down, and that hurt me. And I just tried, even until right now, I'm 49 years old, I try and earn that guy's respect. I love him. That's a coach.
You talk about your high school coach, and that power of a high school coach, of somebody that you respect and that you look up to. I remember going through high school football, and there was like hardly anyone in the world that I wanted to be pleasing more than my high school football coach. And it led to like lifting 2 or 3 times a day. It left to, you know, everything that you did, it was to please that guy. And I thought many times as a father since, I think it was just because I respected him so much, and I respected his ability to influence my life. And as a father now, I think sometimes I long for that respect from my kids, as I now have 3 teenagers in the house. I think anybody who's a father of a teenager at this point probably knows exactly where I'm coming from. But sometimes that respect is not given the same way that you would expect or want it to be given. And how do you gain that respect? How did your coaches gain your respect? What's the magic sauce for someone in that age group, say 13 to 18 years old, of really responding that way to an adult and wanting to please them, respect them, and follow their advice?
Yeah, that's such a good question. And with that, I think I'll go right to my last coach, Andy Reid, who would start each football season in training camp with a talk to us as players and men. And he would say, look, all you guys are a little different. Okay. You come from different backgrounds, but we have the same goal here, to be world champs. We're going to be together every day for 7 months. And I want to tell you something. You're all weird. Okay. You're all a little bit weird. So I want you to give each other some space, respect each other. And if you can treat people right, we're going to be just fine. If you can't treat people right, you're probably not going to be a good fit on this team. So if you go down to the cafeteria, if you're cool to the people in the cafeteria, you're going to fit in in this organization. If you're great to the trainers and the equipment manager, you're going to fit right in. If you're great to your coaches, it's all going to work together. But if you're a punk to the equipment manager, you don't fit on this team. So, and that was like, boom, the initial shot over the bow for all of us. This is my standard. I want you to treat people with total respect. Everyone in this building, we are a team. And that's something that's really special. All of us responded to him. That's why when he won the Super Bowl across the board in the NFL, people were so thrilled for Andy Reid. It was like, that dude is amazing. Well, that's because he treats people that way. As a dad, I don't have the luxury to be a coach where I'm just barking or it's like way more a two-way street. And I've learned so much from Andy, from Dick Vermeil, Ray Rhodes, Lavelle, others, that my relationship with my kids, I have to be open. I have to love the heck out of them. They have to know that. And then it is just this vibrant, dynamic relationship. Every day changes. They're growing. I'm growing older. They're going through challenges. I have to fight in my brain to remember what it was like to be in junior high, high school, college, so that when they have anxieties, I can try and get my mind there and remember, like, I remember my 9th grade math class and just not understanding what in the world geometry was trying to go in my brain. And if I can do that, then I can be a better dad.
Yeah. And getting traded is not an option when you're a kid, right?
That's right. Hey, it's been great knowing you. All your stuff is packed up in your locker. Where would you like me to send it?
Can they declare free agency?
Not very fun. Michele, I'm sorry to tell you this. We're moving again. Those are hard.
Well, it sounds like you've been good at making sure you have empathy for your kids, like trying to see it from their point of view. I think that's something that we haven't talked about before on the podcast, but I think is super important to kind of see it from their point of view. I think that's awesome. And then you mentioned they know that I love them.
Yeah.
And I think you can't get that respect that we were talking about until you have the love part.
Yeah.
Expectations not set or expectations not met every single time. I think that's a good reminder for me as a dad that, you know, sometimes we've been on track as a family where we feel like we're all headed in the same direction. We have a goal as a family. This is what we do as a family. And when we do that, we've been closer. Kind of like Andy Reid telling you guys at the beginning, hey, we're going to be world champs. This is our goal. And I think as a family, if you can set some of those things like Jeff Davis talked about on the podcast about being like setting those goals, setting that mission statement, like what are we all about as a family? And if you know that, then maybe we can step as dads into that role a little bit more naturally and get some of that respect and response from our kids that sometimes seem a little bit distant.
You just nailed it right on the head. I mean, my kids and I think the youth today are just incredible. They're amazing. I look back at some of the things that I went through, and I'm like, my kids are a million times better than me. Like they blow me away every day. Their intelligence in school, their kindness. I think one of the great gifts that God gives us is our freedom to choose to do what we want. And with that, you know, when we make mistakes, it's like, ouch. And one of his other great gifts is that we can remember those mistakes that we've made so we don't do them again. And also as a dad, so I can help navigate my kids through this, you know, absolute obstacle course of adolescence, where the one major thing that is different with us and them is social media. And we didn't have phones. We didn't have the things that we did lasting forever in other people's, you know, right in front of their faces. And so just trying to help them navigate this incredible time has been what a challenge as a dad. I love it.
So is there you speak about social media and the world that we're living in today is so different than when we grew up. Is there any tricks to the trade, any things that have worked well with you, with your kids? Is it just staying close to them? Is there anything you'd want the listeners to know about things that have worked for you?
Or haven't?
Yeah, I know. We had a good talk the other day about everything that you like, everything that you tweet, retweet, everything that you see, even every email is permanent. It will last somewhere digitally forever. And maybe that's an employer, maybe that's a future whoever, but that digital record, that's permanent. And my wife is, she's definitely the leader in the home this way, where she shares her heart with our kids in a way that they know how much she loves them, but we will both often talk about the dangers of these devices. You can see anything you want, both good and bad, on our phones and on computers. And it's not a matter of when they see something inappropriate or evil or jacked up. They will, for sure. So we talk about, what is your response when you see something, either by yourself or with your friends, that you know is not right and you want to get out of there? What are you going to do? And so we just talk about that. It's not a guarantee. It's not a full proof, but at least we get them thinking like, hey, you're going to see a bad image. And when you see it, you're probably going to either want to see more or something. And so what is your plan at that point? The plan is unplug, turn it off, get away, just remove yourself as soon as you can. Talk to us and say, man, I saw this image. I do not feel good about that. Okay, let's have a plan for moving forward. And I think for all of us, that's the social media, our phones we have access to everything in the world, both good and bad. It's pretty amazing. So I want them to learn how to use that at a young age for the good, and feel like they do have some autonomy and responsibility. But it's certainly different.
It's definitely that fine line between trust and protection, right?
Yeah.
Like, you want to protect your kids from all that bad stuff, but then at some point in the future, you know that they're going to go out on their own. They're going to have their own phone. They're going to have their own place, and they're going to have learned how to manage that tool.
Yeah.
And not let it destroy them. I think that's a challenge for everybody who's ever given a phone to their kid, and you can't just give it to them and hope for the best. There's got to be some talk. And I love that you've got the communication between you and your kids, of when something like that happens, what do they do? And hopefully they feel like there's an open door to their parents to come and say, I saw this, I want to fix this, or whatever they want to do with it. I think that's vital, to have that expectation that, hey, this is not an awkward thing for me. I'm your dad. I'm here for whatever you need. Cory and I have had these conversations before, privately, and that's something that they're going to see. And unfortunately, you think, I want to empathize with my kids as much as possible. I can't empathize with that. I can't, because I have to have been in that same place before as a kid their age. And that just wasn't the case when we were growing up.
So different.
So different. I don't know, having that sympathy to say, hey, I know this is going to happen to you, and I'm here and I'm on your team.
I've been in an NFL locker room. I've seen it. I've heard it all. And nothing do I love more than when my kids come to me and say, hey, this happened. And to let them know immediately that we as parents, we are not mad at them. We are with them. And we tell them, we are your team. We want to be your greatest support through life. So just by saying that just pumps us up, that you're willing to come and talk to us. I love it. So I want them to feel free and like, I can talk to my parents about anything. It was difficult for me to talk to my parents about stuff. I'm sure it's difficult for them, but I want to keep that communication, keep letting them know, hey, you can talk to us about anything. We love it. You're not going to shock us. You're not going to surprise us. Disappointment and heartache are part of life. We're going to get over it together. Let's go.
That's cool. I want to talk about kind of your upbringing, and how you became such a champion, really. It wasn't a walk in the park from everything I know, right? It wasn't like you were, given anything. You had to work hard in high school, and then you had to work hard in college, and then you had to work hard in the pros. Tell us about where that passion for greatness came from.
That's a great question, because it goes back to my family growing up, and the oddest thing in the world that I became an NFL football player, because starting off, my parents they're amazing, my heroes, but my dad had no desire for us 5 Lewis boys to go into organized sports. He started early on the Lewis plan. The Lewis plan for him was, I'll take off whatever work I need to so that we can go hike, be out doing cool stuff together. he was worried that if we got into football and organized sports, that we would just be hearing language and intensity and craziness, and then we're gone. He's like, no, I'd rather us be together. Let's go hike the Grand Canyon. Let's do stuff. And then one at a time, my older brothers started playing football, and they did well. I was the fourth of 5 boys, so I learned so much from my brothers and competing with my brothers, and then having a drive once it was my turn. I'd seen all their games, a million of them, and when it was my turn, it was like, it's my turn. It's my turn to play, and I loved it. Sports to me has always been about people, coaches and teammates, and that relationship and the fun that I have with my teammates and in that environment is it's just perfect for me. And so my career is interesting because it wasn't easy. I was never the most gifted. I was a late bloomer in high school. So I literally prayed. I can't tell you how many prayers in high school that I just prayed that God would help my body grow. I was super small. I had 0 muscles, and it was embarrassing to me. And my mom would say stuff like in junior high, she'd say, Chad, you got long legs and you can run. Like, it's such a gift. And as a junior high kid, I needed to hear those words. It meant so much to me, but I was like, oh, whatever, Mom. I acted like I didn't want to hear it. But when she said it, I was soaking it up. And my body did eventually start to grow very late. So I was a walk-on in college and then an undrafted free agent in the pros. So what I learned from that walk-on experience was everything, because then a couple years later, I had to do it again in the pros, and it wasn't scary. It was hard, but I wasn't freaked out that I had to go as an undrafted free agent and make that team. And so what I also found is that walk-on experience in college, that was just the beginning. Everything is walking on.
Yeah.
Taking a new job is walking on. The thought of entitlement is freaky to me. That just because someone's drafted first round, they're going to come on my team as the Philadelphia Eagles. We're trying to win a Super Bowl. We get a first round pick. It doesn't matter if they're a first rounder or a free agent. All you want in the huddle is someone who can make plays. That's it. And so since, leaving the pros, I've had to walk on at dozens of other things. And I'm grateful for that really hard experience of walking on, because it was really hard, but it taught me more than anything else.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, we all walk on as parents too a little bit, right?
Every day we're walking on.
Exactly.
Like, where's the manual?
There is no manual. That's why we're doing this podcast, right?
That's right.
So how do you teach your kids that idea of walk-on's good? How do you teach them that idea of drive and passion?
Well, one thing Michele and I talk about when they come home and they have frustrations is just keep working your hardest and earn your coach's respect and your teammates' respect. Like Michele will always say, don't be complaining about stuff. Just work. Like, put your head down and do what you're supposed to do and just work really hard. And I think that's the best thing that we can both share and also hear. Because when someone who loves you puts their arm around you and says, hey, this is going to be okay. You got this, but it's going to take a lot of work. Let's get started. It's motivating. It's like, okay, I can do it because you're close by and I'm going to be okay. And that's our foundation right there.
So is there any Lewis family mantras, things that you talk about on an ongoing basis, or quotes that you guys use, in your family?
One thing that Lavelle Edwards shared with us, and it was his probably most oft repeated mantra, was be where you're supposed to be when you're supposed to be there. And he would say that all the time. Like, you guys, if you're supposed to be in class, just be there. Even if you're not ready, like, just go sit in class and be there. Don't slough. You're supposed to be at practice, be there. And he would say, I promise, if you just do that through your life, you're going to be successful. And we tell that to our kids as well. Like, you guys just be where you're supposed to be when you're supposed to be there. And if you just do that, you're eliminating most of the problems, and you're going to be in a spot where you can learn and grow, and it'll certainly be safer than out, getting in trouble. But be where you're supposed to be when you're supposed to be there. That's probably our biggest mantra.
I love that. Show up.
Show up. Yeah, the principle of just showing up, especially now where anxiety is at an all-time high. people are feeling pressure from social media, from their peers, from imaginary places. And just that alone, just show up. There's going to be so much fear for our kids to like enter the stage, show up. And if they can just say, you know what, I'm just going to at least be there. I think that's about 90% of the battle. Just get there, show up.
I've had some thoughts lately about that. Like, our kids are missing out on a lot of things because of how they're having to grow up, at least right now. It's early 2021. They're behind masks at school. School is either really strict or really, really laid back. Show up, don't show up. And I'm wondering, like, as a dad, I've been thinking this lately, and maybe this is a question that we could talk about. How do we substitute those experiences that normally come naturally? You know, sports have been canceled. School has been canceled. How do we supplement? How do we make sure that they hit the ground running when it's time for them to show up?
I couldn't do it as well as they are. The whole mask thing, like to have your life shut down, to be wearing a mask full time at school, that would be really challenging. And I'm seeing them do it. Through this pandemic, we've had a lot of time as a family just to hang out, play games, watch movies, have dinners. Even though 2020 has been really challenging, it's been so good that we've been able to be together as a family. We've spent a lot of time together, and I've appreciated all of it. It's been really good. So I would say just that together time, let them know how much I want to let my kids know how much I love them. And I want to find joy in the things that they say. I want to love them enough that when they say a joke, that I find it funny. I want to love them enough that they can make mistakes and it's okay. I want to take the pressure out of that father-son relationship so they just feel good. That's my goal. That's my desire. That's what I want. And so that's what I'm trying to do.
It's a great goal. I like that.
I have a very similar goal. I feel like if you can have that core strength of love, that everything else can fall into place. You can have conversation about anything. You can guide them anywhere, right? Yep. That's awesome.
I look at my trajectory as a human being. I was miles away from being an NFL football player when I was in high school. And then I was a missionary for 2 years. That was the last thing I thought about, was playing in the pros. And so it was such an unlikely thing that ended up happening. But the things I learned all along the way were just perfect stepping stones. High school, my coaches, my parents, my family, my brothers, boom. And then being a missionary in Taiwan, having a mission president like Kent Watson changed my life, taught me how to work, taught me how to learn, taught me just learning Chinese alone has been such a confidence builder. Like that language, oh my goodness, it's so dang hard. And then surviving and thriving for 2 years, coming home and having the challenge of going to BYU, walking on, making the team, having success, earning the trust and respect of my teammates and peers and coaches. Finding Michele. She was a 2-time All-American volleyball player, falling in love with her, convincing her to marry me, having 7 kids. All these stepping stones were just, they took me to such an unlikely place to play in the NFL, to be an ambassador for the NFL in China and so many other countries. Was like, that was never my goal. But the slow stepping stone, just work hard, put your head down. Those small things open doors. I didn't even know those doors existed. And I think for today, like if you look at the jobs that we have today, and in 5 years, the jobs that are going to be created because new tech, new stuff, we don't even know what's out there. But the ability for us and our kids to just put our heads down and work hard, be where we're supposed to be, when we're supposed to be there. When we come to those doors, we're going to be able to open them and kick those doors in and rip through them and make something great. If we're taking care of business like right now, slowly, if we're trying to take shortcuts, we're going to get lost over there in the darkness. That's not a good spot.
You've been in a lot of locker rooms, because I think you could take like that last 2 minutes and probably just like say, this is Chad Lewis's locker room speech for his kids, because it's good. Let's go. If you bookmarked one spot in your life as a dad that you could say this was an ultimate payday or the ultimate moment of fatherhood for Chad Lewis, is there a day that you could go back to and share that experience with us?
That's such a good question. I know the births of each one have been pretty those were earth-changing. The first one, Emily being born, not breathing, doctors rushing in to try and save her life. She spent 3 days in the NICU, but she had the cord wrapped around her neck. They just wanted to make sure she was good. She was good. That was a day. Paying off my home was a day. I remember just the other day sitting with Michele, and she was looking at all of the kids, and she's like, you guys, this is so awesome. We're here. We're healthy. We're together. It's not always going to be like this. And so let's treasure right now. And that feeling was like, there was something so good about her saying that and stopping whatever we were doing enough to say, hey guys, appreciate this. We have food. We have this home, and we are together. And just seeing how things are in our own country and in the world, there's chaos. Like, it's not always going to be this peaceful and prosperous. And I'm glad that she had us like recognized. So I can't say like the moment. I'm sure there's like so many moments. If I went through my pictures, I'd be like, there's another one. That was so good. Definitely, winning the NFC Championship game, heading to the Super Bowl was like one of them. And I tore my Liz Frank on the touchdown, finishing that game to help us get to the Super Bowl. So it was like the best, worst day of my life. But it was like, that was one of them. That was to work so long, so hard for something and to care about it so much.
Did you have kids at that point?
Yeah.
And could you share that moment with them?
Yeah. They were right there with my both joy and disappointment, because they were going to live through the rehab of that and not knowing the future. But the thrill of, I remember we were heading to the Super Bowl. So I went that next week to the kids, my girls' elementary school. And this elementary school in New Jersey, just outside of Philly, they sang the coolest song ever for me as like elementary school kids. And here I was, I just had surgery on my foot. I was not going to be able to play in the Super Bowl. I was there with Emily and Sarah at their elementary school, and this whole elementary school, they taught them this little song and they sang this song. I just started weeping. It was all too much. Going to the Super Bowl, not being able to play, being with my kids. It was like a combination of so many forces. I just sat there and just tried to take it in, and that was an amazing day.
So throughout your career, I like this. Like I'm a big golfer, and I watch the PGA, different tournaments. And I just love that moment at the end when someone wins and then they hug their wife and they put their kids on their shoulders. And it's just like, like this, and they show it on television, right? But you don't get to see that in football very often, or many other sports, kind of that moment of celebration with the people that you love the most.
Yeah.
So through college, and then especially through the pros, as your kids are getting older, were there moments where you're on a phone or you're finally meeting them to celebrate some of the things that happened during your career?
Here's an interesting post-game celebration. We just, in this same game, I'll go back to the NFC Championship. We just beat the Falcons. We've been to 3 straight NFC Championships. We lost to the Rams, to the Buccaneers, to the Panthers, and now we just beat the Falcons. We're going to the Super Bowl. And I did just break my foot. So I'm standing there. I'm kind of hobbling. I'm doing an interview with Fox Sports. Michele, as soon as the game's over, comes running onto the field. And I didn't see her. I was doing the interview. She jumps on me, and I was like, Michele, I just broke my foot. She's like, what? I just saw you score a touchdown. I said, I know, on that play. And so we had this moment like, you got to be kidding. I'm like, no, I'm serious. And my brother, who was just behind her, he came, and then he jumped on me. I was like, Dave, I just broke my foot. Hang on. And they were looking at me with like disbelief, like, no, that did not happen. You're going to play in the Super Bowl. I said, no, I am not. And it was just one of those surreal moments. But after the game, all that night, I was with my family. It was very peaceful, even though it was disappointing. Like I had my family by me in the most important moment. And then I have surgery on Wednesday. We fly to Jacksonville on Sunday. We're there practicing with the team. We go to the game. I'm the last one out of the tunnel. I'm following Brian Dawkins. He takes, goes through the tunnel, goes crazy. And then I come across the field on my little old man jazzy scooter, that I borrowed from a Jack scooter store in Jacksonville, Florida. And so I come out on the field and I'm sitting on the sideline, and it really hits me that I'm not playing in the Super Bowl. I'm there, but my Super Bowl is my family. They came to support me. There's 17, 18 people of my family in the stands. And I'm like, that's my Super Bowl. That's forever. And I don't know if it would have hit me in the same way if it wasn't in the same circumstances. But it was so powerful. And I hope I never lose that feeling that come hell or high water, come good or bad, that's my family. We're going through this thing together, and I'm so grateful for that.
Yeah, I think that's important to note, because all the great things we do in our life, anything that I would ever personally want to celebrate, if I didn't have my wife and my kids, it wouldn't be that special anymore. Like, I don't have anyone to celebrate it with.
I know.
Like,
it's so true.
I think that's an important part of life. Like, you got to take care of your family and your family relationships and make sure they're strong, because none of the rest of life is even near as fun or exciting or near as you can't quench that thirst without having the people you love next to you.
Yeah,
right?
That's so true.
And I can't even imagine the seeds that experience planted in your kids watching their dad score the touchdown to send the team to the Super Bowl and then not being able to play, knowing how disappointed you must be that you're not playing, but that you were there, that you showed up when you were supposed to be there, and they were there to support you. Like, have you ever had a conversation with your kids that were there in the stands about how that affected them?
What I have had a conversation about is I don't want that or my career to overshadow their young lives and put so much pressure on them that when they go to school, all the kids are like, oh yeah, your dad played in the pros, you should be better than you are,
Yeah.
I just want them to have their own lives and feel like they can make mistakes. They can shoot air balls. They can drop passes, make penalties, and not be judged that, dude, your dad was an NFL football player. How come you're this?
Yeah.
And so that's what we've focused on more than anything, is just, hey, we support you guys. Whatever you want to do, this is your life. We got you. We're going to come to your games. And it's just been amazing how fun it is to watch our kids play. It's just, I love it. It's the best.
There's a lot of pride in this dad.
Yeah, that's a good thing.
You can tell that he loves his kids.
So maybe a vulnerable question for you, Chad. If you look back on your life as a dad, is there anything that you say, oh man, I wish I would have done this a little different, or I wish I would have handled the situation just a little different, or I wish I would have spent a little more time this way? Is there anything looking back where you would tell your younger self, ooh, do this?
Yeah, the number one thing, I'd be nicer. I'd be nicer to my kids. Like, now that I'm older and I'm raising kind of the younger kids, I can see how effective it is just to like chill out and be nicer and let them like. And at first, I guarantee I was too uptight, too like, dude, if you don't do this, you're not going to get good grades. Blah, blah, blah. And I guarantee I put some pressure on there that did not need to be there. I just want to love the heck out of my kids. I want them to know it. I definitely learned that from my parents and from Michele's parents. Those 4 people in my life have been heroes. They live that. And it's taken me a while to get to that point where I'm like, okay, it's okay if my kids, find their way. What's not okay is if I'm not loving and supporting. It's not okay. I have a desire to be cool and to love them. And I still want to be the dad, but I also want to have a relationship where they know I love them. So I want to be nicer.
Well, I think we've all made that rookie mistake, right? We can call that a rookie mistake.
You can see it in other people so easy. Like, I see young parents and they'll snap on their kids. I'm like, oh, you don't need to do that. Those kids are just so precious. And then when we see pictures of them when they're younger, it's just like, oh my gosh, I wish I could have that day over again.
Yeah, or what was I thinking? There too.
Again, where's the manual? Like, holy smokes.
Yeah, I'd go backwards and do it all again in 2 seconds. If I could have them at their 1-2-year-old selves again, oh man, I'd give anything for that.
I know it.
Well, and that's really what this is all about and why we are doing this. We hope that the people that listen to the podcast, regardless of the situation that they're in, whether they're in something similar to the guests that we have on, similar to me or Cory, or similar to a story that's told, that they somehow identify through their situation at that point in time, or when they get there, that they can avoid making mistakes that others maybe have made, and that they can formulate their own form of parenthood the best matches their kid, because none of them are going to be exactly the same. People are different. Kids are different. And we've all just got to kind of do the best that we can. It's the whole purpose of the podcast is when people listen to the podcast, that they can form their own type of fatherhood, their own type of parenthood, to move forward with their kids, to make those kids give them the best chance that they can to be successful in life and to grow up, hopefully, with a lifelong friendship and a lifelong relationship with their parents.
Oh, I love that. I hope if my kids hear this podcast, and my wife, I hope that, number one, they know that it's genuine. I can't pull the wool over their eyes. They see it. They're with me every day. There's no faking it. I want them to know how much I love them, my wife and all my kids, and these 2 incredible sons-in-law as well. Like, I want them to know what my desires are. My desires are for our family to be tight forever, to do good things, and to have joy in our home right now, even if there's swirling controversy outside our home or in the nation or in the world. I want them to know that we can hang together and have joy through no matter what, good times and bad times.
Perfect. And the perfect way to end the podcast with the question, Chad, what do you think it means to be a gentleman?
I see the way my parents and Michele's parents treat people, and I'll focus on just their kindness. I think to treat someone with respect and kindness is a gentleman. I have a long way to go to be great, but that's where I want to be. I want to be on that path to be a gentleman. I want to open the doors for my wife. I want to treat my kids better and better every day. I think it's a really cool goal to be a gentleman. And that's what I want to do.
I have to say, Chad, that, we don't hang out a lot. We're not best friends per se, but I've seen Chad a lot in social situations. And he's usually the star walking around in a lot of these social situations. He is always a gentleman. I commend you. You are nice to everyone you come in contact with. You have a lot of energy, a big smile on your face. You are a gentleman. I've seen that in you, and it's impressive, quite frankly. So good job of being such an amazing example to me and many others.
That's cool. Thanks so much for saying that. Appreciate your friendship. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for joining us today. We hope that you have derived some value out of today's podcast. We hope that you subscribe to the podcast so that you can get it every Monday morning. And if you like the podcast, please subscribe to it, like it, and engage with us. If you have something that you'd like to have discussed, or a guest that you think would be great on the podcast, or a topic that you'd like discussed, please email us at info@thegentlemanproject.com. That's gentleman, MEN. And we'd love to interact with you as our listener. We will talk to you next week. I'm Kirk Chugg.
And I'm Cory Moore.
This has been the Gentleman Project Podcast. Thanks for joining us.